It's a summer of no World Cup. It's a summer of no European Championship. But fear not, folks, we do have the Copa America, South America's finest, taking part in Brazil, the 46th edition of the Copa America. With me to preview this, I have a really all-star duo here. First of all the way from, where are you, Adam Chernoff? Are you in Miami? Are you in Vancouver? Are you in Colombia? Where are you at the moment?
Halfway in between Colombia and Vancouver, in Miami, enjoying the heat and probably enjoying the festivities once the matches get going tonight.
Happy days. I'm also joined by We Love Betting's Mark O'Hare. Mark, I do know you went on a holiday to Greece last week, but let's call a spade a spade. And I know your better half isn't watching this. You were obviously doing a lot of prep for the Copa America.
Oh yeah, sorry. That's there's no rest for the wicked, really. So a nice week with my feet up in front of the pool, reading and watching all about these 12 teams on show. So I'm fully prepared.
Good man. I knew you would be when you went to Greece. So what else would you be doing in Greece? Gents, we're going to take a quick look at the outright betting here. Currently 2.3 Brazil. I know they were a hell of a lot shorter before Neymar's injury, obviously. 5.2 Argentina, 7.4 Uruguay, 10.0 Colombia, 13.0 Chile, 23.0 Peru, and it's 41 better there. Adam, I'll start with you first, because down towards the bottom of the betting here, I see two teams that should not be here in my view, Japan and Qatar. What's going on? Fill me in.
Well, I think Qatar is a surprise for everyone to be involved, but it was also a surprise earlier in the Copa Libertadores and Sudamericana when all of a sudden the South American advertisements on the boards next to the pitch were replaced with Qatar Airways. And in my time in South America, not like there was heavy one-way traffic through airports going from somewhere in South America over to Qatar. So it was a little bit of an interesting sponsorship, but they seem to have purchased their way into this tournament. They'll also be in the next edition of the tournament as well. So make of that what you wish, but they're making the 12,000 kilometer trip over to Brazil to play for their first ever Copa America chance. There's always two invitees, but certainly an interesting one. Japan, they haven't been there for about 12 years now, but they did make an earlier appearance, didn't get out of the group stages, but they did make a prior appearance. So a little bit strange, but you get the two Asian Cup finalists coming over to participate and round out the field of 10 to 12.
Yeah, and obviously you did a pretty extensive piece on insights.matchbook.com, and won't ruin it here, but you're definitely opposing the first two games here.
Yeah, it wasn't a coincidence, but as I was writing it, I said, I can see where this one's probably going to be interpreted by anyone reading this, but I think we might touch on those later in the video.
Absolutely. Mark O'Hare, I'll come to you first. Tell me about the dynamics of the Copa America, because there is so many different angles at play here. I mean, it's a smaller tournament, the smaller venues. There's only about 4 hours, I think, between each stadium at a max. Has the Copa America kind of been devalued in recent years? Because I know you can probably relate to this growing up even here in the British Isles. Back in the day, it was quite a big deal, but there just doesn't seem to be that much hype anymore about it.
Yeah, I mean, I, for one, was always enchanted by the Copa America. I remember many years staying up through the night as a teenager watching the games. I was always pretty seduced by the colours and the teams and the players. But yeah, pretty disappointing this year, especially not being a World Cup or a Euros year, that it's not getting as much attention. Maybe it's the television channels is showing it or what. But it is a peculiar Copa America. We've had too many of them, if you ask me, really, in the last 10 years. We had a Centenario one, I think in 2016. We've had another one next year as well. And also with the Qatar World Cup coming up and it taking place in the winter, it basically shifts the start of World Cup qualification forward by a couple of months. Now, the Copa America is normally quite a cyclical thing in terms of teams try it out as their kind of last opportunity to play competitive football before the cycle of World Cup qualifiers begin. And let's not kid ourselves, like World Cup qualifying and getting to the World Cup is the most important thing for all of these nations in South America. It's the holy grail, if you like. And the Copa's always had a little bit less prestige, if you could say, really, because of that. And this year in particular, these teams, the South American teams, will, there's still another couple of FIFA dates before World Cup qualification begins. There's then 2 rounds of World Cup qualifiers and another Copa America to come as well next year. So it's in a bit of a weird situation this year. As you can see, a lot of the teams and coaches are pretty new to their teams. They're pretty undercooked, if you like. So some are taking this pretty seriously, some not so seriously, but also the quirks of the competition being a 12-team competition split across 3 groups. Only 4 teams exit after the group stage. So you've got to be really, really bad to fall at the first hurdle. I do think it's a bit of a fool's game if you try and start plotting your way towards the final just because of the intricacies of the draw. You know, third place teams coming in here and there.
I think we lost Mark there for a second. The perils of live broadcast. Mark will come back to us in a second. Adam, I'll come back to you. Where we're just sorry, Mark.
Extra time comes into play at the semi-final stage and the finals. So I think that's an interesting little quirk, if you like, for the underdogs. If your team can get through to the quarterfinals, they only really need to get a draw, and then they're a shootout away from the semi-finals. So, you know, it's a competition that does have a history of producing.
Yeah, we've lost him there again, Adam. But look, Adam, I'll come to you in a second, but I'll have to cut off Mark when he comes back in. BC, so that is the beauty of it. Obviously, he's making some pretty sage points there, but I want to talk about the top of the market, Adam. Brazil, even without Neymar, 2.3 on home turf. A fair favourite for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the impact to Neymar, I don't know if it says more about the quality of Brazil or the lack of quality or perhaps preparedness of the other teams. A player of his value only really worth about 4.5% to the overall market. Brazil was down to about 2.05 before his announcement was made official, and they went all the way back up to 2.5, 2.25, 2.3. So you're looking at about a 4 to 5% move for a player of his stature. It really says a lot about the tournament. But this one, it really, they come in as the most prepared team for sure. So I certainly think that that price is worthy of it, as short as it is. And then looking down further down the market, there's really not a lot of teams to contend outside of Argentina, Uruguay, Colombia, and perhaps even Chile. So really a reasonable price for them. I think there's really value with them at anything greater than 2, to be quite honest.
Yeah, we've actually lost Marco here for full time. He'll send me a text in a second, and he's back on the broadcast. Marco here, some technical difficulties in the O'Hare household today.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that.
It's okay. That's okay. I think you missed Adam's point. We were talking about Brazil there, Mark, but having chatted kind of pre-recording to you, Argentina obviously are going to be, you know, a popular pick here with Lionel Messi and the kind of star factor they have, but you seem to be kind of keen to oppose them here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I made a big deal 12 months ago before the World Cup and said, you know, Argentina were a wretched price. I think it's the same again this time around. They had 2 positives this time last year, amongst you know, a mountain of uncertainties. One of which was their head coach Jorge Sampaoli. The other one was Lionel Messi. Now Sampaoli was sacked after the dismal showing. Scaloni, his assistant, has taken over on a caretaker basis. They can't afford to bring any of the big names in to replace Sampaoli because he was on such a long-term big contract. The federation is a complete mess. So immediately there's a bit of a downgrade there. Scaloni has no senior coaching experience as a number one. He's tried to make major changes to the squad. You know, he's axed almost half of last year's squad. He played 7 goalkeepers in 8 friendlies, handed out 24 debuts in those first 8 friendlies as well. So he's clearly trying to kind of breed and find new replacements to his team, but they lack any sort of cohesion, any sort of structure as well. Now Messi is the obvious elephant in the room. He's good enough to win any game on his own, but he's been out of the team as well, kind of rested, if you like, since the World Cup. Came back into the team in March. They switched to a back 3 to try and accommodate him in his best position. It was a complete disaster. They lost to Venezuela, and the issue really is that this Argentina side is built and set up to try and play for him rather than with him, and that leaves, you know, the team completely unbalanced and exposed, particularly in defensive areas as well. He has tried to plug those gaps defensively, but you know, I just look at the price of Argentina. They're there on reputation. They're there because of Messi. You know, I'd be really, really, really surprised if they did anything major in this competition. And I think it's, you know, double the price in both the group winner market and the outright market. You'd be looking towards Colombia for sure.
If you were with us last summer for the World Cup, Mark O'Hare, you opposed Argentina correctly on so many occasions that I absolutely want to be with you here this time. We'll talk about a couple of the group angles afterwards for Lane. Adam, further down the field, is there anyone else kind of catching your eye? Uruguay, 7.4. They may be sneaky pick. They're kind of a bit older now as well, Adam, aren't they? Like, but even Colombia, 10.0. You've obviously been based in Colombia for a few years previous. What are your thoughts here further down the field?
Yeah, I mean, Uruguay, the age narrative is the one that seems to always bite them. And I think this time more, it's really about the fitness, and Suarez may or may not be fully fit for this. I'm not sure if he has to be for them to progress, but they really sit in the driver's seat just because of the draw. If they happen to win their group, they get put way at the bottom, while Brazil's going to be way at the top in the bracket for the second round and the knockout. So they really do have the easiest path to the final, not having to face Brazil. So in terms of that pricing, you sort of have to look into Group C and look who else can sort of make the run from the bottom in that group.
Can I just ask you about Uruguay, Adams? I think you put in your notes here that they were probably one of the biggest drifts. I think they drifted from 1.65 to 1.86 against Ecuador this weekend. What's the story there? What's the big reason?
Yeah, I think that there's certainly doubts around Suarez in this matchup. His fitness has been concerned in the last few friendlies. He's only played just a handful of minutes. There's been a lot of experimenting too. This team has a lot of history under Tavares, and there's a lot of continuity, which a lot of other teams can't have. But sort of that headline news is driving the price in this one. They have drifted down. There was low as 1.65. They're up to 1.86. And I think there's a familiarity aspect that comes from playing Ecuador, a team that knows them very well, a team that went to Montevideo in the World Cup qualifiers and actually got a win in the last competitive match between these two. So that sort of plays a little bit here. And Ecuador's a bit of a sneaky pick here in the market just because of how physical they play. When you look at how sloppy some of these teams may be coming into the tournament, size and physicality can go a long way, especially the speed too. But I wouldn't be one to necessarily stay away from Uruguay just because of their draw in the market. I think it really sets up well for them compared to the other teams and just how they can get to the final and really dodge Brazil the entire way.
Mark O'Hare, obviously very keen to oppose Argentina even. You're keen to oppose them, but is there anyone else kind of at a bigger price here that you're looking to actually kind of back in the market, the outright market?
Yeah, I like Uruguay as well. Tavares, he's been there for 13 years now in his second spell. There's consistency, there's solidity there, and with a great defence led by the Atletico Madrid pair up front. Few teams have enough firepower to match Uruguay as well, and that kind of reinventing and refreshing of the midfield as well. They're a year down the line now compared to last year as well. So I also think the group is very kind to them. An aging Chilean team. Adam talking there about the Ecuadorian team, which I'll talk about probably later, really, but they're treating this as a glorified training exercise, really, and then that youthful Japanese team as well. So, the draw is really set up for Uruguay. If you're going to oppose Argentina, then you have to look towards Colombia in Group B. Whether they've got the ability to go further than the semi-finals, I'm not too sure. Carlos Queiroz now in charge there, which I think is a very positive appointment. Jose Peckerman was there for 6 years and did some great things, often accused of probably being a bit too conservative. And Queiroz has often been wrongly pigeonholed in my eyes of being a conservative coach as well. But he's got adaptability to his game. I know the Rally sets up a great defence, counter-attacking team, but he has got the potential to mix and match there. There's plenty of quality in both boxes. But if you're looking for an outsider, and I think the Copa America really does throw up the opportunity to back outsiders because of the little quirks that we talked about, really. Peru are the one who really interests me. Made a real impression last year at the World Cup, failed to get out of their group, and were really unfortunate to be basically out of the competition after 2 games. But again, they're a year further down the road in terms of development, in terms of ability too. Ricardo Guerreiro has made a great impression there. I know they've got Brazil in their group as well, and Venezuela have got real good claims as well to be that outsider in the competition as well. But I think they've got an advantage, really. Venezuela have to play Peru in the first game, then they have to play Brazil, and they face the longest journey out of anyone to play in the two combining games, really. And Peru end up with Bolivia last, which should hopefully ease them into the quarterfinals with a nice position. They've actually reached the quarterfinals in the last 8 Copa Americas as well. They've actually been really good in this competition, despite being during like a real lean spell in the early 2000s as well. Reached 3rd place twice. I just think they've got consistency about their game. They've got ability. Paulo Guerreiro, their captain, is fit, available. He might be getting on a bit, but he's fantastic leading that line. And they've got 3 players, sitting behind him with bags and bags of potential pace, power, and 2 City midfielders who are quality in their own right as well. But I think most of these teams at the Copa America probably suffer defensively, and I think that's the case of Peru and Venezuela. But if you get the luck on side of your draw, then you never know how far these 2 teams can go. But I think especially from back to trade opportunity, Peru and Venezuela are the 2 to stand out.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth there. They're obviously going off at double digits. If they get the single digits, you can kind of lay out and lock in and green up in your book. By the way, I can't believe the Carlos Queiroz is still going. I would love to see that guy's passport. The amount of stamps and where this fella's reading, it's ridiculous. Let's go to Saturday night's games, guys. I'm gonna just take a pass here in Brazil, Bolivia Friday night. We're recording obviously on Friday afternoon.
Oh,
yeah, 1.08 Brazil at the moment. So I don't think there's much there. Adam, we'll start with you first. Venezuela and Peru first up on Saturday night. I'll be straight up. Don't know a hell of a lot about either of these teams, but current betting: Venezuela 3.34, 2.55 Peru. The draw 3.12. Peru giving a quarter of a goal starting the Asian handicap to Venezuela, and the total is a pretty low one at 2. Where are you standing on this one, sir?
Well, I think Peru is the deserving favorite. A lot like Mark said, there's some history here with the team. And you look at Gareca, he's was with them last year for the World Cup. 17 of the 23 players from last year's squad at the World Cup return. So that's a huge number when you look at a tournament like this, where there's a lot of focus on experimenting, getting ready for sort of the upcoming qualifications and upcoming international tournaments. But you look further of how much work he does with youth in that country. All but 2 players on this squad, despite a number of call-ups, have played minutes with him in international play. So no other team can really say that. That's big for Peru and sort of make you run deep. There is that narrative with Guerrero and Farfan, 35 and 34. But they're both. Guerrero's playing great in Brazil right now. He's had a fantastic start to the season, looking really well. There's some issues in depth at midfield, but that continuity is going to go a long way. And I think, especially against Venezuela, who's really in that experimenting phase, the only thing that really worries me about Venezuela is their back line is really poor, but they have the best keeper in the tournament. I don't think many people are going to talk about Wilmer Fariñas. He's playing phenomenal at Colombia. He's due for a big signing, much like sort of Jerry Mina was a couple of years ago when not many people knew about him. He was playing phenomenally. Fariñas has been playing with Millonarios in Colombia, has been making just outrageous saves, is playing at a superb high quality. He can keep this team single-handedly in the game. You can't say that about many keepers, but he makes this back line of Venezuela much stronger than it is by itself. The only thing I don't love about Venezuela, where I think they're in a little bit of trouble here, is their 2 best players, Rondon and Martinez, are both the exact same position. They play center striker. So it's really a problematic situation for Dudamel, who can't put both of them on the field at the same time. So he's sort of handcuffed by his own talent, which is a bit problematic for Venezuela. And we've seen them slow down a little bit, but they're certainly the trendy pick. I would probably look for an early goal in this match, which makes sort of laying the draw early and looking to back it in play a little bit tempting. Peru, a deserving favorite for sure, but I would probably look to do something pre-match and then secure a profit in play.
Yeah, it's probably Carlos Queiroz calling you there, Mark. Obviously, Mark, you made a good case for Peru in the outright one, so I'm sensing or guessing or second guessing you that you probably like them in this one also.
Yeah, kind of. I think the prices are probably about right. I think I'd be taking a different tact here. Tournament openers are renowned for being low scoring, but I think of all the games this weekend, I think this is probably the one for me which quite excites it from a neutral perspective. I think you've got 2 teams with the ability to upset the odds, with the ability to get forward and cause problems. With semi-final places in mind, really. So they're kind of both attack-minded, but both approach games differently. Venezuela are much more counter-attacking, but very direct about how they do so. Rondon's very key to that, and the central striking position. They look to play into him and play off him, really. But as Adam says, defensively they're far from watertight, reliant on Fariñas in goal. But they have scored in the last 11 games, and I think that kind of rough and ready physical approach could cause Peru a few problems. Peru aren't physically the same size, particularly in defence as Venezuela. But as I said with Peru, they've got so much quality on the ball. Guerrero up front, Edison Flores, Christian Cueva, Andre Carrillo, all players who can create and cause problems too. Very flaky at the back themselves, but BTTS would be something I'll be looking at to get on side if it's around 2.2 or bigger, which I think you will get. I was expecting it to be, or I price it up really around sort of even money really, but the alternative angle there is to back over 1 3/4 goals, which is a little bit short around the 1.66 mark, but obviously you're making money if there's 2 goals or more there. I think both selections have appeal depending on which way you want to go, but I'm expecting this one to be one of the more watchable games from the first round of games.
That sounds good. Hopefully, goals to get us going and Copa America 2019. Mark, I'll stay with you for this one. Obviously, you've given a pretty, detailed opinion of what you want to get against Argentina. They're first up, their game on Saturday night. They're playing Colombia, which promises, I presume, to be a pretty good one here. 2.31 are currently the Argentinians. Colombia 3.72. The draw 3.22. Colombia getting a quarter of a goal start on the Asian handicap 2.0, and the total is 2.25. Mark, how are you going to oppose Argentina here?
Yeah, I think you got to really. I think I made this more of a pick. I'm really in the opening game of a Copa America, both under new coaches as well. But I think Colombia, just through the consistency and stability, really, of the squad, key players, particularly at centre half and in attack, and James is fit and available in midfield as well. I think Colombia are much more further down the process of rebuilding and regenerating than Argentina. So you want them on side for sure. They do have issues at left back, and particularly on the left side of midfield. I'm not sure who's going to fill that void, how Carlos Queiroz is going to approach this game. I suspect he'll probably chuck in an extra midfielder and play one up front just to keep things secure for the first game against a team like Argentina. So I'm not too keen on backing them to win the game, but I think if you back them to not lose, whether it's plus a quarter goal or plus a half a goal, both basically appeal to me at the current prices. But alternatively as well, I'm not expecting goals in this game. Historically, these two teams play out pretty dour games. 4 of the last 7 have ended 0-0. 6 of the last 8 have featured under 1.5 goals. I mentioned the penchant for tournament openers to feature a few goals. I think the opening round of Copa America games in the current format, there's about 45% strike rate on under 1.5 goals. And if you think that the top 2 teams, the top team in Group B will avoid Brazil until the final, I think this could be quite tight and cagey. I think Queiroz is a manager who's well versed in setting his teams up defensively strong as well. So yeah, I'd be looking towards the under 2 and 2.25 goal line here, around 1.81. I think that's a cracking bet.
Yeah, so talk to me about Colombia plus half a goal. Currently it's 1.7, but there's a bit of margin in that mark, and I'd sense you might get a better price tomorrow. What would you bet that up to? Would you bet it to 1.75, or what way would you be looking there?
I'll be backing it at 1.7, Sully. I expected it to be shorter. I make it shorter myself. As I say, I think these two teams should be pretty much going off a pick, and potentially Argentina slight favourites here. But I think you can get 1.7 making money on Colombia not to lose. I think that's a very fair shout.
Mr. Chernoff, your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think if this was a year ago or a year from now, and we were talking about the 2020 edition of this tournament, Colombia, I think they would be ready to sort of take that step, and I could really make the case for them. I would have to make a case against them to win. Now, if I'm making the case for them to win, I think that they have the chance of just sort of getting stuck, a lot like we saw them in the World Cup. And this feels just like it's just a little bit too early for them to really come out and make a huge statement. Queiroz in his first competitive match, he's going to be a little bit sort of restricted on what he can do. And the right call here for this team is to put Duvan Zapata in at center forward and take Falcao out. I don't think he's going to do that in his opening match and risk tipping over the whole country who's in love with Falcao for all he's done, the leading goal scorer for the country. It's just going to be such a drastic change for him to make, even though it's the right one. I still think he's going to come out. He's going to be a little bit conservative of what he's going to do in his debut. And against Argentina, I'm not sure that necessarily benefits Colombia well. I've got my doubts about Argentina, and it's really going to come down to can they control the middle of the pitch going against the center back duo of Jeremina and Davinson Sanchez, which is going to be very difficult for them to do, even if they put Messi with Agüero or if they come up with Lautaro Martinez. I think that that's going to be a consistent battle that's going to really be difficult for Argentina to win and control. Colombia can certainly play Argentina out wide. As Mark mentioned, there is that gap at left fullback. I was hoping that Frank Fabra was going to be there. He has so much speed up the wing and just adds another dimension to this team. Unfortunately, he was not named to the squad, so I don't know who they're going to go with, but they're likely going to, again, be a little bit conservative, sort of like we saw them against England, a match where they could have just outplayed using their talent in midfield. They didn't do that. They sat back and they ended up needing that last-minute goal just to stay alive. So that could very well be the case against Argentina here, where they're just the decisions aren't made to make that one necessary tick over to get Colombia sort of over the hump. This one might, as Mark said, be a really closely contested match. I can certainly make the case for a draw, which lends itself well to the Colombia handicap. Have my doubts with Argentina. Wouldn't really want to back them in this situation, but I would be in agreement here. I think it's a really tight match for the full 90 minutes.
So let's go. We'll be doing lots of daily previews for the Copa America throughout the tournament. But I ain't working on Sunday, guys. So let's have a look at the Sunday games. Adam, I'll stick with you because, you know, I mentioned earlier you did a pretty extensive piece about on insights.matchbook.com regards Qatar. You didn't put much stock into the fact that they won the Asian Cup, Adam. I think some people are probably putting more stock into that than they should. Current betting here, Paraguay at 1.77. And that has kind of drifted, Adam. We'll come back to that in a second. That has kind of drifted from the previous piece you put out, I think, so there could be a bit of value here. Qatar getting 3/4 of goal in Asian handicap, and the total is 2 at 1.85, favouring the over. So yeah, let's come back to this. So you're very hot on Paraguay in this one, Adam. Even with the drift, are you still kind of staying on board?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's read the headlines here. Qatar wins the Asian Cup. They've got a coach who's been in place for a big tournament. They've had success. Everyone's looking at that like it's a huge deal. But if you do a little bit of work and you look a bit deeper, a negative shot differential in those matches, and they finish with a goal differential of 19-1. So, I mean, that's not going to happen very many cases, and it gives you a little bit of insight to what kind of talent they were playing in these matches. And I hate quoting the FIFA rankings. I think they're a bit generic, but if we're just going to use that as sort of a global scale to put the matches that they played in perspective, the opponents they played ranked 72nd, 86th, 121st, 76th, 37th, 67th, and 26th. And that match that they won against Japan, they had a significant, I'm not going to call it a home field advantage because of the political issues, the fans couldn't come over, but it was a 400-kilometer travel, same language, same food. You're getting the same healthcare. You're getting the same sort of environment that you're used to playing in versus Japan, who's made a 7,000-kilometer trek over and has been playing in conditions they're unfamiliar with for the last 3 weeks. So that's a big deal for them. I think that was a significant advantage that tilts that scale just a little bit. But really, you now come 12,000 kilometers over to Brazil in a tournament that you admittedly bought your way into. And you're going to have to
allegedly bought their
allegedly. Let's not make claims. But if you're looking at this team, it's very young, average age of 24 years old, and they're very small too. On the defensive side, they only have one player that's taller than 6 feet, 1.85 meters. And in attack, they're very small too. Ali, their biggest player in attack, 1.79 meters. They're going against Paraguay, who's got mountains on the defensive line, especially at center back. So that's going to be very big. But if you look and try to sort of scour YouTube for any clips that you can find of this team playing in the Asian Cup, what comes up and what's very apparent is this team has a lot of pace, but they were never tested in midfield. If you're looking at the space that they had to move against this inferior competition, they were able to do whatever they want. So those limited opportunities that they could generate against poor competition were made a lot easier because they were never challenged. Now you come to South America, you're playing at the Maracanã. It's a big stage. You're playing against Paraguay, who can be super physical. They're going to be suffocating in midfield. And quite frankly, they can just bully this team on the pitch. In Paraguay, they have their issues on defense. That's really the one big gap here. Berizzo is going to have to come in on short notice after Osorio made his 2-hour debut in Paraguay before deciding it wasn't for him. But there's certainly talent here. Paraguay tends to be sort of off cycle compared to other teams in South America. You want to sort of be peaking as you get towards the World Cup. Paraguay is always peaking in Copa America. They have success, and they've always been 2 or 3 years off, and then they fail to qualify for the World Cup. But I think we see them have success here, especially in the opening match in a group where a win here would really allow them to sort of back their way into, at worst, a third place result with a result in their last 2 matches. So this is a really big spot for them. And really, Berizzo, he's pretty vanilla tactically, and I think that this match benefits him going up against Qatar, who's admitted that they're just here for experience. I don't think we're going to see any crazy game plan coming out of Felix Sanchez for this one. I think it sets up well for Paraguay. I don't get the price, but if we're going to put the price in perspective, if you're going to say Paraguay is sort of 9th or in comparison to Bolivia in South America, they're the 2nd worst team. Bolivia, what's their price against Brazil? 30. So that shows you the gap in the content. Now you're getting Paraguay priced as a favorite. I still think it's too long. It should be shorter here. This price drifting because of the headlines. All the headlines talk about how great Qatar is and how they're coming over and they're won the Asian Cup. And that's all great, but it doesn't mean a lot when you're coming over to face a team that's going to dominate you physically on the pitch, I think this is a great price for Paraguay.
Happy days. Could be a Sunday fun day. Very keen to pose guitar here. Mark O'Hare, quickly on this one, in agreement here or elsewhere?
Yeah, just about really. I mean, I think the physical perspective Adam brings up, I'd wholeheartedly agree with. I did spend a little time last week looking at videos and tapes of Qatar, particularly through that Asian Cup, and it's undoubtedly they did overachieve and overperform. But I do think there is something special building in that country. I'm not saying they're going to pull up any trees in this tournament, but I'd rather take a watching brief before really kind of nailing the coffin or getting them on side. Particularly in this game, because Paraguay, they are a funny team. They are an odd team in South American perspective, but they do have an abundance of kind of ability in a centre half, but they can't find a system that works for them. The constant upheaval in coaching is also a negative for me. And also they're looking to try and switch their style from a more kind of aggressive, direct to a more possession-heavy approach, which is why Burrito has been brought in, really, as Osorio's replacement. Have they had enough time to implement that? I'm not too sure. They're also quite uneasy favourites. They tend to really relish the role as the underdog as well. So how they will be fixed coming into this game as heavy favourites, I'm not sure. They've lost 17, drawn 3, and won just 6 games since May 2016. Their only victory since October 27th. Sorry, their only victory recently coming into the game came against Guatemala in a pre-tournament friendly. So they have got a really weird record where they've not lost their opening group game in the Copa since 1975. If you like sort of long-term irrelevant stats like that, then that's of interest. But for me, it's a watching brief, really. I want to see this team before I make any firm decisions.
All right, Sunday night's nightcap, Uruguay against Ecuador, 1.8, Uruguay, Ecuador 5.9, the draw available at 3.56, Ecuador getting 3/4 of goal, start on the Asian handicap, and the total again is a pretty low one at 2. Mark, I'll say with you here again, obviously you're kind of liking Uruguay in the outright selection here. Do Oscar Tabarez side get off to a winning start on Sunday night?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm happy to take them at 1.8. I think that's a very fair price. I've talked about them enough. I think they've got quality in both boxes. Exciting midfield coming through too. Tabarez's teams are always very competitive, very difficult to beat. But I think the key really for this match really lies with Ecuador. I said earlier that they're using this as almost a competitive training exercise. The head coach Hernan Dario Gomez, he's coached 3 teams to World Cup finals, which is a first really in world football. But he coached Ecuador to 2002 World Cup, their first World Cup, and his return really was greeted by a lot of disappointment by the Ecuadorian fans. They felt he was yesterday's man, and he's quite a simplistic coach. He took Panama to the World Cup, which was a massive achievement really, but has a very simplistic game plan. Likes a direct style as well, but he's already come out in his first press conference and said the Copa America almost doesn't mean anything to him this summer. It's all about getting the right team, the right system, the right blend in place for the World Cup qualifiers. Uruguay won 11 of the last 16 games since 2018. And if you look at Ecuador, take out the games against Central American teams like El Salvador, Trinidad, Jamaica, Guatemala, and Panama, all of whom are significantly weaker than Uruguay. And Ecuador have won 1, drawn 4, and lost 9 of the last 14. 6 defeats and 9 against South American opposition as well. And they failed to win a competitive match outside of Ecuador since November 2015. So I think with what Gomez is saying, what he's got at his disposal and what he's looking to achieve from this summer, I think Ecuador are a very fair price Uruguay are a very fair price, around 1.8 to get off to a winning start for me.
All right. Adam Chernoff, very quickly, any thoughts on this one?
No, I think that's bang on. And to follow up on that quote, Hernan Gomez, I came here to qualify for the World Cup and not win Copa America. Not a great vote of confidence heading into his first competitive match with the team. But I think the problem here for Ecuador is they've got all this talent, size, and speed, but they've got nobody to really put a tactical approach on that. Gomez is not known for his tactical ability. He's a motivator. He gets in the locker room. He gets everyone ready to go and gets them playing above their ability. But when you have everyone playing as fast as they can and as aggressive as they can, it tends to lead to chaos, especially against a side like Uruguay, who's so well put together and well maintained and well disciplined. So I think that could certainly lead to an Uruguay win. But as we talked about earlier in the show, this market drift is certainly interesting. And if it is based on Suarez, I certainly see the value for Uruguay. But it's certainly an interesting price, to say the least.
All right, I'll be honest, gents. I wasn't that excited about the Copa America this week, but hearing your dulcet tones and expert analysis
nothing better
has absolutely psyched me up for the last. Right, guys, before I let you go, I want a best bet from each of you on the outright, and I want a best bet for this weekend's game, Saturday and Sunday's games. Adam Chernoff, I will start with you.
Best bet on the outright. I'll leave that for after the two matches. I like two spots here.
Sure.
I like two spots here. I like Paraguay, as you could probably tell in my previous breakdown of the match. I also like Chile. I wrote my matchbook insights column, which was up about a week ago now, minus 0.75. I don't believe that market's currently available any longer because it moved so heavily the other way. So we got a really good price with that one about 8 days ago. The number's getting a little bit large now, and I was sort of expecting it to come back after that friendly that Chile played against Haiti. But if people were watching, and this is a case where apparently people are, the passing that Chile had looked like it was 2013, 2014 all again. Once they woke up in the second half after giving up that early goal, they looked absolutely tremendous. The way they were able to move the ball up the pitch and just that energy that we haven't seen with Chile in 3 or 4 years was back. So that certainly is a little bit of a motivator. But Japan sending a youth side, 11 players who are 20 years or younger. This is a preparation for them for upcoming tournaments ahead. There's really nothing to really note on this roster. The biggest Ito, their attacker, 57 kilograms. He's playing against Chile, who again has a back line of guys who have played. All 4 guys on the back line for Chile have played at least 100 international matches together. This is experience against. I mean, it's going to look a little bit comical when you see the size difference between what Japan is sending and what Chile is sending. Where the speed of Japan can benefit them, they can get around. You're looking at a disciplined Chile backline with a ton of experience. So certainly think that benefits Ronaldo Rueda and his competitive debut as well for Chile in this one. I like Chile. I like Paraguay. I would lay the draw in Venezuela and Peru, and then look to back to draw after an early goal. I think we see goals in that one. You can secure a little bit of profit in there in play. So that's a nice approach. Outright, you're putting me on the spot. Send it over to Mark, and I'll give you an outright pick after. Okay. You know I don't love the outright markets in anyone.
I should have realized with that Japan and Chile game. So you sent me copy about 10 days ago for that game. I was wondering,
there for you.
Yeah, it was there for me. Never saw you. Back to minus on that market has been absolutely smashed. So well done. The early bird catches the worm. Adam Chernoff. Mark O'Hare, top outright pick and top weekend selection.
Yeah, I think the outright, just because I'm not willing to invest my money in such a short price in Brazil, which, I think Brazil are very fair favourites and very clear favourites too. I think you've got to look towards Uruguay as an outright pick. If you do want that bigger price, then I'd look towards Peru as a back to trade opportunity. But in terms of this weekend, I think the game of the weekend is probably Argentina against Colombia, and I think that's probably where the best bet might lie. And rather than get Colombia on side, I think I'm going to oppose the big scoring game, and under 2.25 goals, around 1.8, I think would be my best bet of the weekend. I don't want to make it too Uruguay heavy. I do expect them to beat Ecuador as well, but that's the bet that really stands out for me.
I do love a Saturday night under, Mark, where I'm in the pub and I don't have to go back and watch the game. I love it. Just watching on my phone. Adam, come on. So one outright selection from you.
I don't love these outrights in this or when we're talking about football. But let's go. I would agree with Mark and go Uruguay because of the positioning in their draw and how they're going to end up at the bottom. I think anyone who doesn't have to play Brazil is a benefit, but I hate to pick the market leader, but Brazil probably still value even without Neymar in this one. So you're looking at the two teams at the top and the bottom. I think we're destined for that final in this one, just based on the talent and who's out there on the pitch.
All right, guys. Thanks for taking time. Very much appreciated. That's it from us for today for the outright preview and this weekend's games. The guys will be back in the next couple of weeks. We'll be doing daily previews one-on-one with Mark O'Hare and Adam Chernoff. If you haven't got a Matchbook account and you'd like to get involved in one of those big prices, maybe Peru, maybe Uruguay in the outright market, check out offer.matchbook.com for a £10 risk-free bet. Enjoy the weekend's action and do remember to gamble responsibly at all times.